Welcome to Allies, a series of interviews with international experts from different countries, where we talk about how their respective countries changed since February 24, or the invasion of Ukraine. Today our topic is Estonia, and we are gonna talk with Mari-Liis Sulg, expert on Eastern European Partnership at the Estonian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and a PhD student at the University of Tartu. First of all, welcome. From what I know, Estonia has been an ardent supporter of Ukraine since way before the annexation of Crimea or the clandestine start of the Russo-Ukrainian War in 2014. To me, it seems that the latter events have only hardened the resolve of the Estonian people and the government in supporting Ukraine on the way to attaining EU membership. This advocacy in Tallinn's part is much appreciated by many experts, although unfortunately not very well known amongst the Ukrainian public. I also personally know a little about the role of Estonia in transferring much of its digitalization experience and, quite interestingly, decentralization experience to Ukraine. What was surprising to me, however, is the willingness of Estonia to go beyond the so popular humanitarian aid and provide arms to Ukraine, even before the full-scale invasion happened. This certainly comes in contrast to many major powers in Europe who to this day remain either unwilling or undecided on greater involvement. Not only that, but Estonia's assistance to Ukraine remains unmatched and unreachable for most friendly states. According to the data collected by Kiel Institute for the World Economy, by late April, Estonia has spent around 0.8% of its annual GDP on aid, or about 1/3 of its annual military expenditure, which is just quite mind-boggling. While seemingly not much in absolute terms, the proportion is really staggering when compared to other much bigger states. So my first question to you, Maria, would be, is why Estonia is so supportive of Ukraine? Is it because of common historical experience, or is there more to it?
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for such a long row of questions. First of all, I would start from the point that we consider this war ongoing since 2014. This is just escalation since February, and for us, it has been quite emotional as well, because this war or this aggression started on the very early morning of our Independence Day, and well, our overall motto, or so to say, principle has been that we've been helping Ukraine with everything we can, and with even a bit more. And I think this ongoing situation is so serious and important for us, because this is not only the war somewhere far in Ukraine, but this is a war in Europe for us, and this war is against Europeanness, European values, and the future of Ukraine. We do not see it apart from the future of Estonia. So this is a bit wider and deeper question for us. Of course, this ongoing situation, this humanitarian crisis that's been evolving, it's the largest since the Second World War, and this needs to be dealt with all the possible ways. And we do have been doing our share, and we've given Ukraine the military aid, as you already mentioned, and we were one of the first countries who did it. This also shows how seriously we take this situation, and also our humanitarian aid has been quite remarkable in terms of numbers and our contribution. But I would also bring out that there is quite remarkable number of Ukrainian war refugees accepted in Estonia, and it's almost 40,000 already. And we are one of the top receivers in Europe per capita. And this is also one important avenue where we can support Ukraine, actually. We should not forget that aspect as well. But I would like also to bring out that we've been working with Ukraine since 2006. Ukraine has been our priority target country for our development cooperation. And many Estonian NGOs and implementers have been active there for some time. And especially in Eastern Ukraine, where we have those nexus projects, so to call, which is something between development cooperation and humanitarian aid. And this was also very important when the aggression evolved on 24th of February. Then our NGOs already had very good access to the people in need, and they were able to intervene quite quickly and quite effectively. And I would also mention some of the biggest, maybe remarkable things that Estonia has been doing in Ukraine since 2006. First of all, Estonian e-governance academy has been active in digital sphere. They've been working in the framework of EU different projects, and they've been implementing on Estonian X-Road example, the Ukrainian version of our X-Road architecture, which is called Trembita, the Ukrainian version. And which is quite remarkable tool for Ukraine to implement this decentralization reform. And another important reform topic for Estonia in Ukraine has been cooperation in the field of education. Estonia has been part of several EU projects, and our implementing agency under the Minister of Education has been active there as well. And third important topic in Ukraine for us in development cooperation has been innovation and entrepreneurship. It's very important for us to support access to Western markets for Ukraine and to support this development in general, but also in different smaller projects.
Drawing up on your answer, how did many like the plethora of initiatives that Estonia had in Ukraine, and some that I personally either work with or know of, how did they react to the invasion? How did their overall work change since then?
Yeah. 1 year ago, Estonian Minister of Foreign Affairs established a development cooperation implementing agency called Estonian International Center for Development Cooperation, which is this kind of roof for the implementers from there on. And they've been actively in contact with all the implementers and trying to support them and to restructure the ongoing development cooperation projects. And I know that some of the projects have been put on hold. Some of them are being continued online, depending on the project. And but in terms of activities, we haven't taken in any new. We haven't started any new projects this year. We have restructured our budget this year, and we have allocated all the development cooperation budget for the humanitarian aid needs this year. This has been the most visible change in this. But I myself have been also in contact with some of the implementers, and of course everybody is trying to adapt and to do what they can and to support, or also maybe in the framework of the ongoing projects. I know that some of the implementers have been asked also humanitarian aid, and so we've been trying to combine the needs and ongoing projects. But what also I would like to mention is that and when the war broke out in February, then we established this humanitarian aid hub in this ministry, where different people from the ministry came together, and then we organized this sending of aid, and we also tried to cooperate with different NGOs and also the implementers, and it really has been quite remarkable to send this direct aid and to be also in contact with the people in need and also with Estonian implementers.
I see. Thank you. How did the main political parties react to the invasion in Estonia?
Well, the security and the future of the countries of Eastern Partnership is something that is of bipartisan in our politics, and I don't recall any political controversy on that, if you're interested in that. But the support to Ukraine is very strong, and I would also mention that the Estonian private sector and the Estonian people have been also very, very supportive, and I know the statistics is that every third Estonian person has made charitable donation, and this also shows this strong support for Ukraine.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, of course, it's a kind of controversial question whether there any opposition to supporting Ukraine or not, and so usually speakers have trouble speaking about this. It is completely fine, but yeah. Continuing on controversial topics, it is common knowledge that Estonia has a large Russian minority who, despite the limits on political participation, have residency in the country. How loyal are Russian minority is to the government and to Estonia's support to Ukraine?
Yes, as with every unexpected change, there might be some people who are not adapting it with very quickly or with emotion as well. But I must say that in Estonia we are doing rather good in that field. I would argue that this Russian speakers living in Estonia, they have been feeling that they are part of this success where Estonia is today, and therefore I would not bring out any strong confrontations, but it's very broad argument at the moment. But there are of course exceptions, and it depends in the end on the personality or the person or the background. But in general, I would say that we have been managing quite good in this.
Yeah, because I couldn't help but notice some like pro-Russian protests in Berlin, for example, or some other cities around Europe. But then there are some Baltic states where there's more than a quarter of Russian population. Yeah, and you and you basically don't have any of that. It seems.
Yeah, even then May 9th went by quite calmly. I would say that there was this traditional paying of respect and traditional traditions were there, but it went by quite calmly. So I hope that also shows that we've been involving and managing different parts of society more or less successfully.
Yeah, that is great. How confident are the Estonians in their security arrangements regarding NATO?
I would connect this with the latest developments with Finland and Sweden joining NATO, and this is something that creates even more confidence here in Estonia, which makes this Baltic Sea as a NATO internal so-called lake, and this our support for NATO has been always very strong, and the trust in Article 5 as well, and I think that this latest development is even growing this confidence.
Yeah, I learned a bit about NATO's doctrinal shift recently, I guess because of what happened in Ukraine, and you're currently transitioning from forward presence to forward defense. Could you elaborate more? What are NATO plans nowadays?
Well, there have been some discussions on updating this NATO strategic concept, and discussions on NATO 2030 are still ongoing, and our policy is that this new strategic concept has to take these latest developments into account. but I would not elaborate here more because this is out of my competence.
Oh, it is absolutely fine. Yeah, but basically the idea was whether NATO is expecting Baltic states to, like in the worst case scenario, whether it's expecting to have forest brothers again, or is it actually gonna try and hold the territory?
No, we trust Article 5, and we of course have to be prepared ourselves, which includes also the readiness of the so-called forest brothers. But this all is seen as a one overall plan, not as a separate activities or avenue. So yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you've already mentioned the Baltic Sea becoming like an internal pond. Yeah, like while Lithuania and Poland are kind of concerned about the Suwalki gap, Estonia's defense seems to be totally dependent on maritime routes. How well is the Baltic Sea protected against Russian incursions? Like currently or in the future?
First of all, I think that this Suwalki gap is not the concern only of Lithuania and Poland. It's ours as well. And we are also connected with NATO and NATO troops movement from the south on that perspective. But yeah, since 2016, we've been hosting the enhanced forward presence, and this tripwire effect is also something that we believe into as a deterrence. And
on the first day of invasion, Russia dropped a number of troops near Kiev using large quantities of helicopters. Is there any counter to such developments in place in Estonia? How did this fact affect Estonian public?
Well, yeah, we've been following the developments in Belarus with quite high concerns, and this connection with Lithuania is very close to us. And yeah, we do not see this the developments in Belarus also standing apart from what is happening in Ukraine, and we very carefully follow what are the developments there. But so far, just preparing and monitoring. So I would not bring out anything special, but I think that the tension was a bit higher in Lithuania, probably.
Territorial Defense Force in Ukraine has played a huge role in stopping Russian assault on Kiev and as well as in northern regions. To my knowledge, Estonia has a similar component as part of its armed forces called Estonian Defense League, Kaitselit, if I pronounce it correctly.
Very correctly.
Could you tell me more about it and how did it come to be?
Yeah, it's a voluntary-based union, so to say. It's like an NGO in a sense, but they operate also under the support of MOD, which is not an usual NGO as such. But yeah, it's quite effective, and I think that the number of members has significantly grown since 2014. And I know that they've been actively also doing different trainings, and they have very good network. And I know many people among my friends who are members and who are involved, and time to time there are some larger scale trainings, and these are also harmonized with NATO standards in a sense that nothing takes part separately in different forms or so. And very strong way how the ordinary citizens can feel themselves also be involved, how to contribute personally into the defense of your country.
Well, yeah, that's certainly the reason why people in Ukraine joined territorial defense. But compared to your experience, we barely had anything in place before the invasion. One of the main issues regarding sanctions by European Union against Russia or Belarus is energy, and usually there is a correlation between how much a country draws from trade with Russia regarding energy resources. What about Estonia? How dependent is it on energy resources from Russia? Will there be a problem if they're cut?
crisis was, I think, most visible latest development is this establishment of this LNG terminal, and the gas resource is one of the main concerns, I would say. And yeah, we are one of the most active voices, perhaps, in the EU in terms of the sixth sanction package. And well, the short answer is that yes, we're trying to decrease this interdependence, but we've been also working for some time already on this reducing and this using of the shell oil resources, which is Estonia's one of the few natural resources. But yeah, we're trying to do this all in the framework of EU and together with our partners and allies. This is something where Estonia cannot do anything significant alone, perhaps. And this is one of the moments where it's very good to be part of the EU.
Yeah, certainly.
Wider support.
Like a month prior to the invasion, or even earlier, Ukraine had a total reevaluation of its shelters around the country, which brought up some interesting results, because you go to a basement, which is supposed to be a shelter in wartime, but there is already like a nail salon there, or something else is going on. So my question is, how well is Estonia prepared for such an event? Are there shelters? Are there supplies for the civilian population?
Yeah, first of all, I would say that as a digital nation, of course, we have this digital solution. We have this app which warns you, and it's called Be Ready, which means Ole valmis in Estonian. And there, when you open it, you can see different subsections. For example, what's the overall security situation, or what's happening in general, and what would be the list of things that you need to have repaired already. Our Ministry of Interior has had many campaigns where they call people to have this minimum package of things to be ready for any kind of crisis, which means food, also water, or think through your energy or resources in general. And the readiness has been there, I think, since COVID actually crisis. This was something that put us into this mode that we need to have more things at home than we need for, I don't know, a few days. And I think this mental readiness has been something that the Estonians are used to, and I think most of the people have something in their cellars to be ready. But when it comes to shelters, then the situation perhaps is not that good, because if you live in a apartment building, then of course there are no shelters or something built underground. But the private houses, they do have mostly cellars, and then those people are perhaps more prepared. But yeah, it's been another discussion here also in Estonia for some time, that should this shelter readiness be criteria when building new houses, or taken into account in, I don't know, public buildings, that they should have one. But again, this is a huge budgetary resource that needs to be taken into account, and there is no concrete common solution at the moment. But
yeah, speaking of shelters and preparedness, I know there is quite a deep bilateral cooperation with Finland. And are there any initiatives, maybe bilaterally or in the EU framework, that helps you bring both countries closer together in terms of defense?
Both Estonia and Finland have this similar formats of these defense leagues, and I think that there most probably is very good cooperation between those institutions. But well, answering to this question now brings me again back to this upcoming Finnish NATO membership, and I think that the future seems even brighter here, but not that concrete solutions I could list you now. But there are many Estonians who commute between Estonia and Finland, and who spend their working week there, and then they return for a weekend. And I think this connectedness between Estonia and Finland is very high, and the connections and the mentality are quite shared between those two countries.
Yeah, you've already partially answered next question I have regarding the Sweden's and Finland's decision to join NATO. I think today they've actually applied formally. And there are a few different ideas what it could bring to NATO. On one hand, there is this period of uncertainty before all the member states ratify their application. And my question is whether people in Estonia are like wholeheartedly support the decision and think that it's gonna safeguard Estonia, or are there like any fears?
I think there was a tweet by our president where he said that Estonians couldn't be more happier among the other countries who welcome Finland and Sweden in NATO. And I think that it's been also in the news that Estonia has offered our support for Finland and Sweden to go through this accession procedures as smoothly as possible, and we've been offering our practical experience in those processes, and the people who were working on Estonian accession procedures are still around, and they can be very good sources of help for those countries. Yeah, a special attention needs to be paid in the sense that we are not protected of any kind of even hybrid forms of attacks or so. Someone somewhere said that Finland has been like a natural partner of NATO already before, as this security is kind of like part of their DNA already, this security thinking. So I think that they will bring their own values and this preparedness and devotion in NATO, which is always expected.
Regarding the war in Ukraine, how do Estonians see its end? Like, what would be the best outcome or the worst?
Well, first of all, we very much support the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and we are the strong supporters of Ukraine in any sphere. But currently, we've been providing Ukraine with all possible humanitarian aid, and also political support has been quite strong in terms of EU accession, and support also this accession period in whatever help might be needed from Ukrainian side. We have been offering, and well, the war is still ongoing in some parts of Ukraine, but also in parallel we have been starting the discussions and plannings of the reconstruction of Ukraine. And currently we have also focusing and trying to find where we can contribute and where our contribution would create the most added value. And we've chosen one of the oblasts as our focus area, and it's called Žõtomõr Oblast. It's northern one bordering with Belarus. And we've been hosting a few delegations already from there, and we've started these practical discussions on possible cooperation. And I think that these ideas and this work is already taking place. But at the same time, we need to make sure that the attention still stays on the fact that Ukraine needs to win this war, and then that the aggressor needs to pay for atrocities and this damage that's been done. And our prime minister has offered this format of escrow account, which means that energy payments to Russia would have this special percentage that would be gathered to support the reconstruction of Ukraine. So far, it's been on idea phase, but the political support for this idea is currently being collected, and how the aggressor needs to pay.
I think today or yesterday I've seen in the news that the US is also offered this idea to have a tax put on energy supply from Russia that would go either to Ukraine or other funds. So I guess the idea is working, and maybe at least partial solution to the problem. Estonia, to my knowledge, is punching above its own weight in terms of political influence, in terms of help to Ukraine, or advocacy of Ukrainian interests in the European Union. So my question is, another provocative one, is how do you view the German efforts in this regard?
Yes, I agree with you that Estonia has been very visible and vocal, and this is something that as a small state we can do and we can contribute, and sometimes what is needed is not only money or only weapons, but which is of course also needed, but as I already said, that we've been helping in any way we can and even a bit more. But when it comes to Germany, then yeah, there has been some criticism, but I don't think that this continuing criticism is helping us further. So it's time to see how to proceed from here together, and how to strengthen our unity. And I think that the German political leadership has taken this criticism into account, and we see daily basis how they have been adapting with the ongoing situation, and they've been increasing their support to Ukraine in time. So I don't think we should be focusing on this criticism towards Germany. And I would also bring out that Estonia and Germany have shared one very practical project in support of Ukraine. For example, one of Estonian companies worked out this concept of field hospital, and it was financed by Germany actually, and it was taken to Ukraine some time ago, and it's been there, and it's been practical cooperation in a sense between Estonia and Germany. So there is not only criticism towards Germany. So.
Yeah, my question was more about leadership, because it seems from public statements from German officials that Germany is unwilling to take leadership on any issues regarding Ukraine. It wants to wait for other allies, while Estonia, being like comparably small country, has much more guts to actually lead, which is quite surprising.
Well, yes, I see I understand your view, but again, I think this general support should come from the EU, and we should not again blame Germany that loudly here. And I think that this strength comes from unity, and this unity should be EU based, which makes our support for Ukraine even stronger. So again, there always can be more support. So, but as I said, also this support has been growing in time also from Germany.
Certainly, I agree that unity is something of greatest value, especially in the European Union. But like from Ukrainians' perspective, sometimes it's hard to understand how deep the roots go, how hard it is sometimes to achieve unanimity on certain questions, and how many actions have to be taken to get to some workable solution. So it is interesting how European members actually perceive this cooperation. Especially if we want to one day join European Union, so we need to understand that there are certain questions that have to, be conceded, I guess, to our partners. Prior to the invasion, Germany was denied Estonia in supplying howitzers to Ukraine. How did Estonian public react? How politicians reacted to this decision?
Mhm. Yes, this procedure foresaw this kind of special requirements, and this is defense related, and this was something that we couldn't continue without the approval from Germany, but also from Finland. Yeah, this question was in the news for some time in Estonia, but again, in Estonia, we are quite realistic that criticizing Germany doesn't take us somewhere far without including Germany into this process in a constructive way. That whatever we decide to do, we need to do it together again. And I think that eventually it was solved quite diplomatically, and yeah, this was time before the military aggression, so perhaps it was a bit too sharp, not sharp, but too, how to say, it was a bit
too radical, I guess.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So we need to also understand this historic past of Germany and their previous this kind of priorities and mentalities in terms of military contributions. So
yeah, you mentioned Estonia helping refugees, and you mentioned like 40,000 people.
Yes,
which is extremely surprising because I know like Estonia is not the first country that people come to from Ukraine. They have to pass either through Poland or else.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been different since the crisis migration crisis in 2015, in a sense that many Ukrainian war refugees, they have relatives in the Baltic states and also in Estonia, which has made Estonia quite remarkable destination for the war refugees. And yeah, we've been receiving almost 40,000 people since February 24, and which makes the share of Ukrainians from our population 2%. And I would bring out this exceptional openness of Estonian society and Estonian political leadership, and there has been quite extraordinary what's the word? Not solidarity, maybe. Yeah, solidarity. And I think it's for us. It's kind of it's not only solidarity. It's even something more. It's our way to support Ukraine, which means that if the women and children of the men who fight there, they are here and they're doing good and they're good and safe, then this also makes Ukraine more resilient. But again, we've been very open in offering language classes, and I know that there are many different solutions here. I know that there's been a separate school open, but also the Ukrainian children can study in Estonian classes, and then they can take this Estonian language classes, and I would say everything has been made possible.
Also, regarding aid to Ukraine, Estonia has almost exclusively sent military aid. I wonder how did Estonian society perceive this? Because on one side, Estonian military is only partial in terms of like having ability to protect Estonia. As far as I understand, the idea is to for NATO to complement the Estonian forces, and like you don't have enough means to protect yourself, but you're so eager to help Ukraine, and it is just really surprising.
Yes, as said already, then we provided military aid already before the aggression started in February, and that again shows that how much importance we attach to this situation in Ukraine. And we don't calculate the security in terms of what we've been giving away is like decreasing our own security, in a sense that this all has been done very carefully and calculations based. And But again, I think here what matters is this mentality that our security and future is also very much connected with what happens in Ukraine, and the more we can support Ukraine, it's also increasing our security or the stability of this region.
Regarding assistance, could we expect more help from Estonia? And if yes, what kind?
Yes, we've been supporting Ukraine. I just went through some data that what we've been sending and providing Ukraine, and we've been really supporting through all possible spheres, coming from cultural heritage support to Ukraine with some special equipment to protect the Ukrainian cultural heritage, and also from environmental side, also from the educational side, and so on and on. But I think that these needs in Ukraine, they're not short term, they are long term, and we need to be prepared for long term needs. And also now we are entering into this reconstruction phase, and this also means that we need to focus on what we offer and to sort out that where we can offer the most added value in our support. But yes, the aid we send will continue, and but again, we also very carefully listen at what the Ukrainian side needs. We try to be as practical as we can in that sense.
You mentioned reconstruction phase, and I can't help but wonder, when will you be comfortable to start supporting Ukraine in this regard? Because currently there is still hostilities going on. There are still ballistic and cruise missiles flying around Ukraine. And how smart would it be to start reconstruction during such time?
As you already mentioned before, then Estonia is known for punching above its weight. So we try to be active here and there again. And we've been, as I said already, we've been choosing this focus region, which is Zhytomyr Oblast. And we've already started discussions with them and mapping their needs and damage assessment as well. And there have been some exchange visits already, and we are hopeful to do something there already this year. So I cannot say anything much more concretely. Perhaps some services, some reconstruction, or some construction, or so on.
So it doesn't matter whether the war ends or not.
Of course, it matters, but also the needs matter in our focus region, and we are trying to start at some point, and we are focusing on also on the needs of women and children. And currently we've been discussing that how we can support the rehabilitation of women and children, but also the families in general. And if we want to do something in some time perspective, we need to start discussions already now. It's a long process, and
well, thank you. I guess that's all for my questions. I'm really thankful, and I think all the listeners and viewers will also support me in this. We are very thankful to Estonia for all the efforts it's doing. It's certainly punching above its own weight. It's very vocal on the Ukrainian side, and we just appreciate all the work you do. So thank you.
Thank you.